And away we go with Cull and Good Bull. Cut 7 for Bonfire 2024. As I said, it was a bit of a light weekend. See up here, first photos from the weekend Saturday was 12:18. So I showed up at lunchtime. And there's a good reason for that. I was going to take the day off. I had it all figured out. I was going to do some stuff around the house. Had a couple woodworking projects that started dragging out with the cut season, bonfire season hitting hard. And that usually happens in the fall. Some of those side projects kind of slow down a little bit. But I was gonna work on the yard, do some weed eating. I don't know. Maybe even just like sit down, not do anything. But my youngest two, about, I don't know, 10:30. We had a football game in the morning. There was that too. But after the football game, I figured take the day off. And then my youngest two said, "Hey, Daddy, can we go to Bonfire today?" So I took that as a sign. And that's how we got a late start. I wasn't even planning on starting at all on Saturday. I usually wind up taking a few days off, maybe even just a couple every year, but not this year. I'm certainly not going to miss this coming up weekend. The last, regular cut. And I'm definitely not going to miss dress log cut. So I think I wound up with the perfect attendance record this year. There's Schumacher Woods. Picking on them a little bit for this wedge. Apparently it's not their fault. Apparently a brown pot set the wedge. That is a tall wedge. And I did actually get conned into swinging on this one. So much for a day off, huh? Now, anybody entertaining, trying to get in one more cut before the end of the year, if you were on the fence about it, this weekend is going to be the first cut since like third cut or something, since the very beginning of the season, that it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool and comfortable outside. I highly recommend taking advantage of that and getting in one more regulation cut where you're going to be cutting down multiple trees. Clear and brush, all that fun stuff. After that, all there is dress log. Just one more log. Is that same tree there in Schumacher. Not only was it a higher wedge, but the wedge was set right in the middle of a big burl. So more extra work. Next, off to a pelt, maneuvering a tree that got hung there. So where they're cutting now, or at least where a pelt's cutting here, we're going to see Neely is sort of in the same area. It's along, there's the road, the county road that goes in front of the property, and then you turn into the property. And that road that goes into the property, if you go straight down that road where it stays an actual road, not where you turn off into the pasture, but that kind of goes along the fence line. And on the other side of that road, so the fence line is to your right, to your left, if you look up, there's power lines. And so where they're cutting here, we just saw a pelt doing some cutting. I think now we're getting close to Neely Woods. All close to the power lines. And what it looks like happened, there's good woods in there. There's good trees. There's stuff to be had out of it. But being close to the power lines, it looks like the landowner, rightfully so, didn't do a whole lot of clearing up there, for fear of knocking something into a power line. And so it's unusually dense over there around the power lines. And it's, vines, and Yo Pond is thick and all kinds of gnarly stuff. So there were a number of trees hung over in this area. Seems like every time I came in, there was another tree that was hung. And I couldn't quite figure why it was that every time I went over into this area, it seemed like there was another tree hung. And then it was on this weekend that I looked up and saw power lines. Put two and two together. So they stayed well clear of the power lines. Never even got close to them. But that, many years of not clearing anywhere close to them, turned into a pretty deep thicket around the power lines. And that's what they're getting hung up on. So here they're trying to top a hung tree. Unintentional selfie. Got a goal in mind here. It's pretty close. That's pretty cool. Maybe that's it. One of those will do it. I'll go back through and figure out which one it is. It might be this one. See what I'm trying to do? Trying to get the axe and the wedge all in the same thing. But yeah, to unhang this tree, you had to get creative. So started with some down swinging, transitioned to a little up swinging. Not easy to do. And at this point in the day, we're getting on to 1, maybe even close to 2 o'clock. At this point in the day, not fun either. On another hot day. You talk about toucans. Travis makes a point. People talk about there's a toucan. I think people should see. I think people should see what happens. I'm not big for toucan hunting. It happened. Turn around, look at it. Take a good long look at what happened. Watch your classman fix it. Watch him have to call for a brown pot or watch a junior red pot come in. Because then when you see a mistake, it's easier to understand, oh, these are the consequences of whatever I just did or didn't do, or whatever we just did or didn't do. So you get the consequences better. But you also, if you're allowed to see what it takes to fix a problem, you also realize, oh man, we could have gotten so much more work done. I did not realize it was going to take this long to fix this problem. What it would take to fix this problem. So I think toucans should be extinct. That's my personal opinion. I don't necessarily get a vote. That's just my personal opinion. For anybody who doesn't know, if there's something, if a tree gets hung or stuck or certain back wedge scenarios or what have you, sometimes some people will call for a toucan. There's a toucan in the woods somewhere, and then all the fish turn around and look for a toucan until the problem is solved. It's an old technique. I understand. But speaking of the opposite of old, this is one of the cats that got me to come out today. I would have otherwise been doing any number of other things. After it, wearing his old man's old pot. Always appreciate that Leggett has a space for them. They're high motor, these kids. Understand it can be a little bit of effort to keep that focused. I do try and help make sure they're in the right frame of mind when they get out there. Be useful, we say. You're not here to entertain anybody, you're here to work. But I did not know this. I did not appreciate this at the time. Hell, he came out last year. Did some cutting last year. He came out the year before. I did not know until after this happened that this was his first tree. So that was cool. I got to be there for that. Going up the double L's. If anybody who's handing out scholarships is listening, this dude 4 home runs this year. So, any scouts who want to make it easier for me to pay for college, keep that in mind. Or maybe he'll just be a lumberjack. All right. And this was the end of the day there for Saturday. So then we move into Sunday, day 2, and on Sunday, I showed up, I think pretty close on time. And this would have been right when people were just getting settled into the woods. E2. FHK was right up at that front corner by the gate into the main woods. Something you see more of this year, the junior head stack in the woods. There'd be years where you wouldn't see junior head stack except for first cut and dress log cut. And then that was it. Kruger Woods. You know, these woods went from these up along the pasture there, that big long walk, main woods. These side woods here, front woods, whatever you want to call them. For the past, however long it's been, 5-6 weeks, whatever. I think there's a reason why they didn't start putting people into those woods until a few weeks ago. But that whole stretch, this whole stretch here, is hotter than hell. As hot as the rest of the woods was, this was awful. But I'll tell you, this Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to be looking forward to spending time around there. It's going to be just right. Got the cold front and everything. It'll be warming up just a little bit by then, but to have a little bit of sun during the day. We just saw Schumacher again. Here's the white truck. You know, I was in the in my personal red truck the other day, my '89 F-150 straight six. License plate says Bonfire, Bonfar. I was in that the other day, and my boy observed, "Dad, every time you fix something on this, something else breaks." He's not wrong. But I say that to say this. Same thing with this white truck. Great truck. Great truck. It is clearly got some miles on it. Now, something else was happening on Sunday. We had a reporter, not a reporter, photographer from Austin, no, Austin, New York. Had a reporter from, or a photographer from New York, who was working on, he's documenting traditions in Texas. Came out to shoot some bonfire. So, you know, whereas Saturday was a short day, I wasn't expecting Sunday having a guest out there. I'm always going to do my best to, you know, in situations like that, help everybody focus on the job at hand, and then I'll show a photographer or a reporter around. Try and put them in the safe places, but if they're taking pictures, try and put them on something that looks cool, but stay out of the way and teach them a little bit about what's going on. And then that way the people who are supposed to lead and the people who are supposed to do can do. So I spent a fair bit of the morning hanging out with that photographer. And like I told him, like I say, he's up in New York. I told him when we had our reporter from New York come down for ESPN 10 years ago, I thought it was interesting that, big city up north would have somebody coming down doing a bonfire story. And he told me, and this is what I told the guy who was out this weekend, that there's actually a long history of archives of people from New York, especially the East Coast, Northeast, big cities, coming down and doing stories about Bonfire going all the way back, pre-Depression. It was a fascinating to hear him describe these stories. It was, this fascinating Wild West environment. And so pretty regularly there would be another story about Bonfire in one of those big city papers. We got a long history of Hollywood. Here we see CDB, Christopher David Breen. And again, nobody tells them to put that on their pots. Nobody tells anybody out there. This is just not some internal policy. You got young folks that just they want to remember, and they want to remember the right ways, and I appreciate that. Respect the hell out of it. Today is the 16th. So Breen was 96. Another 96, class of 96, Brown Pot. Hans Benton. Talked about Hans a little bit in the last Monday Modi this week. A week ago today, or a week ago, was the 9-year of Hans Benton passing away. Again, another 96 Brown Pot. And makes sense that we're looking at a Brown Pot now. This is a dead Brown, by the way. Brown before. But why that's important, Hans Benton, is I credit Hans Benton with there being Brown Pots at Bonfire today. Hans Benton was a friggin' legend. He's an awesome, awesome dude. And like I said in the Modi this week, I think this time every year, I'm going to try and tell another Hans Benton story because they're all so damn good. Awesome cat. And built like a brick shithouse, too. Just a big dude. And after we had built a couple fires there, it was Hans who said, over my dead bodies, there's going to be another bonfire without a Brown Pot. And so it happened. When Hans has an idea, something that he thinks he'd like to do, and I know that there were others, but I credit Hans with being a real prime mover on that. Hans was there as a guide and a mentor, help these Browns be Brown Pots, but also to own the new way that they would have to do things. It's a different paradigm, a different situation, different demands, different resources. So Hans, we wouldn't be where we are today without Hans. And he was so important. He was Hans was a, go figure, a German, right? Um, and also easy on the eyes. I think everybody could admit that. So, for that reason, being a strapping German guy, his nickname was Shotzi, which is German for cutie. That's what the girls called him, Shotzi. Eventually, after years of working at the chicken and working his way up, and there's stories there and damn good ones. What we're looking at here is downswinging here in the core woods. Damn good stories there. He eventually saved up, worked hard, and opened his own bar, Shotzi's Bar. What is now, I think it's A Plus Tutoring or something now. It used to be the Double Daves. He opened Shotzi's Bar there on Northgate. And, gotta love the chicken, gotta hit the chicken, but you had to go to Shotzi's Bar too. And I think Hans' great weakness as a businessman might have had everything to do with just what a good guy he was. If you built Bonfire, if you were Bonfire motivated and he knew it, you almost had to force him to take your money. You had to take your beer and wait till he wasn't looking and then give the bartender the money. But it was Shotzi's Bar that when the Red Pots, pre-99 Red Pots came back, they'd been watching Bonfire over the years, and Bonfire being led by Gray Pots for those first years. After those Red Pots had seen enough, they reached out and requested a meeting, and they were going to offer the Red Pots to the Gray Pots, and then the Gray Pots would become Red Pots, and then all would be right in the world. That meeting was held at Shotzi's Bar. And Hans, being the consummate motivator that he was, and the suspect businessman, was too generous. He shut down the bar, kicked everybody out, so that there could be a meeting between the Red Pots and the Gray Pots to bring the Red Pots back to Bonfire. K2 out there. Send photos like that to my old 03 K2 buddies. They'd like to see those. So yeah, thanks to Hans Bedden. Legend, epic badass. Wouldn't be where we are today without him. Pounding in a truck stick at load site. God, so much damn sun and dust. I'm over it. I think everybody's over it. Back in FHK woods, more brush. I've said this a few times already. I know I told the guy from New York. We were sitting in a place where we were surrounded by big brush piles. The first bonfire off campus after 99 was not a stack. In 2002, it was a brush pile. And there would end up being trees on it, and there were some smaller trees in it, but it was mostly a brush pile. We didn't even load trucks. There wasn't any cause to. Right next to a little stretch of thicket that the owner was turning into a, what do you call it? Paintball course. We were the free labor to cut a paintball course through his place. Most of what we were getting was brush, and you just drag it. A pretty fair ways sometimes, but that was the fire in 02. Like I was telling the photographer from New York, standing there surrounded by brush piles. Most of the brush piles we were looking at, keeping in mind that there were many brush piles all around us, most of the brush piles we were looking at, probably bigger than the entire 02 fire. Which I don't think is saying anything about the 02 fire. I think what it's saying is how far Bonfire has come, how far these Aggies have taken it. So I'm awful proud of them. I hope these Aggies who are building Bonfire are just as proud. I got this brown pot right before he flashed at Gig'em. So there's a question there about, will we do anything special for center pole raise with TU involvement? I don't think so. I mean, it's it's a standard thing that's got to happen. You got to get center pole raised. I don't think they're going to do anything different. Not sure what you could do different. Of course, Bonfire's got an active imagination and creativity. I'm sure they would think of something, but it's mostly about getting the job done. And lastly, if anything, about TU. But I don't make the rules. We shall see. Back in Kruger Woods again, which means Aston as well. Good to see that crew coming back. And Leggett. Hope I got the one I was looking for here. Yeah, I don't know what the log count looks like. Feels like it's pretty high. But we shall see. It's best practice to just work to take your limits and then work to 103% of that. And then whatever happens, happens. The log count is at least enough. So this cat had an interesting downswing. I sat there and watched it for a little bit. Tried to figure out how I could illustrate how interesting I found his downswing. Came up with this. I'm kind of laying down, shooting upside down, laying on top of the brush behind. I mean, he brought it way up there, almost across his body. It was weird. It's hard to describe. So hopefully the photos do a little something. You see what I'm saying? And then there. So it starts above and then kind of goes off to the. It was interesting. I had to watch it for a little bit. Now we're back in Neely Woods, and so this was going to be Neely's last proper cut day. Because next week they are scheduled to be at unload. Next week, this coming up weekend, the last real cut of the year, they're going to be at unload. There's head stack, topping the tree. Doing that for as long as it took for a brown pot to show up. And this was much faster. But this tree was putting up a hell of a fight, all bound up with vines and whatnot. So it took a little bit of doing. But they got it out enough where they could hike it and then they could haul it out. It's one of the chief handles, and there you see it's the memorial engraved on it. Get Neely's axe box in the woods. I mean, they're going to bring their axe box out for chief cut, for a dress log cut for sure. But with them being at unload next week, this will be the last time that we see Neely's axe box in the woods for a regular cut this year. And speaking of the last time we're going to see anything in the woods this year or ever, this coming up weekend, cooled off a little bit. He's had time to mend a little bit. Hurt his hip a few weeks ago. But Ace is going to come out one more time. One more time to cut. He won't be coming out to dress log cut. That's a big day. I got a lot of places to go and things to see, and that's going to be a lot of walking for him. And regardless of what he tries to tell me every morning when I'm trying to leave and he's trying to follow me out, That's too much for the guy. So he's going to come out this coming weekend. One more cut. And that will be the last time after 17 years of coming to Bonfire. That will be the last time that Ace is going to be in the woods this coming weekend. If you want to see Ace in the woods one more time, you got to come out this weekend. And then he's going to be retired from the woods. We'll bring him out to stack a few times. Maybe after things get settled down a little bit, after everybody gets their feet underneath them, get used to the stack cycle and how things work there. He'll come out to stack maybe a couple times. Still hard of hearing, doesn't see so good, so he'll honestly spend most of his time in the hodl, I figured. But he'll come out to the woods, visit everybody on the last regular cut of this season. And then the longest tenured mascot in Bonfire history will be retired from the woods. You know, in one way or another, Bonfire has, throughout most of its history, had some kind of mascot, official or otherwise. There were some years there they had a goat. And then if you're around where the President's Mansion used to be, Aggie Park area, and you're walking on that sidewalk on the President's Mansion, Aggie Park side, that sidewalk that's along Aggie Park, and you're getting close to being across from where the Duncan drill field used to be. Now White Walker and the band drill and all that. But if you look on the sidewalk, like right next to the sidewalk there, you'll find a plaque. Ranger. That was Rudder's dog, he had free reign around campus, and that dog liked being at stack when stack was going on. So for years, Rudder was or Ranger was the mascot of Bonfire. Rudder would just let him out, and then he'd go hang out at Bonfire while they were working. So that went some years, and there were others like it. But at 17 years, Ace is the longest tenured mascot, official or otherwise, in Bonfire's history. So that's pretty cool. And that is it. I told you it's going to be a short one. We'll have these photos sorted through tomorrow sometime. Posted tomorrow, maybe Friday. We'll get them up before the weekend. And that will be one more regular cut. One more regular cut session before dress log cut. And then we're into stack season. So another great weekend. Frankly, a weekend that was really just, it was just nice to kind of relax a little bit, watch the season kind of come together, and it's been a damn good season. It's been hard, it's been tough, it's been hot, it's been miserable, and I'm not even doing anything. So all the respect and appreciation in the world for you Aggies who are out there actually doing work, actually doing hard things, sucking this dust while you're carrying logs and all this. Awful proud of y'all. Y'all are doing an outstanding job. Another great season. And, follow along if you're spectating, not in the middle of doing it. dion-c.me is the website where these photos all go up. And we got photos going all the way back to 2010 up there. Stay tuned to that. Instagram, the podcast, Perimeter Fires, and the Monday Modi that comes out every week on that. And follow Student Bonfire at Bonfire on Facebook, at Student Bonfire on Instagram. That'll be it. So there we go, Aggies. It's another Cull and Good Bull for Bonfire 2024. Outstanding season. I'm having a hell of a time. I hope everybody who's building it is doing the same. Dig 'em. Build the hell.